Welcome, SPG players, to another episode of an unexpected podcast. And with me today, I have my two co-hosts, Matt and Evan Iverson from Boston. And today, we're going to be talking about all of the lists in the ETC. So this is the European Tournament Championships, where actually some of the best players in all of the countries in Europe compete in teams of four. And we are going to review their lists. We're going to review the lists of pretty much the winners and the losers, see what we have time for. But this will be a good indication of not only metas, but also kind of what the top performing players are selecting to bring to one of the most competitive tournaments in the world. But before we get into that, we're going to be talking about a list that someone submitted on our YouTube channel. So we're going to review that list. For anyone else who wants their list reviewed by us on this channel, just submit it on the YouTube channel, or you can message one of us, one of the hosts of the podcast. So getting into it now, Matt's pulling up that list. Matt, what do we have for today?
All right. So this is a list by Mark. I don't know if it's Tinen or Tynan. I apologize if I spelled it wrong. And to let you know why we're doing this list, on the last episode, we reviewed the list that was shortly above him. And he sent in a tear-filled comment saying, my list was the next one down. So, okay, Mark, we heard you. Now we're going to do your list. And
we've now set an incentive for our subscribers to complain. So
yeah, exactly. Now,
right. Yeah,
now all the lists will be like, Matt's got a soft spot. Let's get it.
Yeah, that's right. Like a dog that whines for treats.
I don't know if it was that bad. It was
no, it wasn't that bad. But anyway, we do.
No one's going to send in lists anymore.
Yeah, right.
We do look at listener comments, and sometimes when listers send in tear-filled comments, we'll respond. So we're going to do that now. All right, so this is a Rivendell list. This is a 1,000-point list. I think it actually comes in at 998 points. And he's got Gil-galad as the leader. And he's got a Kingsguard with banner and spear. And if I recall correctly, Kingsguard are Rivendell warriors that get you pay extra points for them, and they upgrade to fight 6. Am I right about that?
I'm going to research that right now. I'm pretty sure that is the case. They are the ones that go to fight 6. But go ahead and keep reading.
Yeah. And then we've got 16 more Kingsguard with spear and shield. And after that, we have Elrond with heavy armor and horse. And he has 5 Rivendell knights. It does not say that they have shield, which would be interesting. And then Elladan and Elrohir with bows, heavy armor, and horses, and then 5 more Rivendell knights. Again, non-specific as to whether those Rivendell knights have shields or not.
Just to confirm, Kingsguard are fight 6.
Fight 6. Okay. So that's what we got. This is a very rich mix here. I think it comes in at 30 figures. No, 31
29.
Figures. I'm sorry, 29.
1 second. So that's
18,
31.
20, 30.
31.
30
31
figures.
figures.
31,
31
yeah.
because of Elladan and Elrohir.
Elrohir,
Yeah,
exactly.
Because of Elladan and Elrohir.
31 figures at 1,000 points. All right,
Ouch.
so I'm gonna hold fire on this and let you guys talk, and then we'll go from there.
So I'm assuming this is for Desolation of Toronto. That's traditionally the tournament that does 1,000 points up there in Canada. Even if not, going to that one, it's actually a pretty competitive tournament. And I would definitely hesitate to bring only 31 troops normally. Though I did actually bring a list that had like about 30 troops. I had Elendil, Aragorn, and Boromir. And I bring that up because I actually got second place with it because these guys hit so hard and so fast that in constant hero combats that I managed to just plow through my opponent's lines before they could even hit my troops. But I did have Fountain Court Guard at defense 7. And this is where I definitely have to agree with Matt's comment, where you need to up the defense of these guys as much as possible because they are obviously the critical weakness of this list if you're trying to get the same effect. You have 4 heroes instead of my 3, and they are very powerful, hard-hitting heroes, but probably going to need to conserve might a little bit more since I had Aragorn and Elendil, obviously a might battery, 2 of them technically, and plus Boromir was 6. So with that in mind, 4 heroes might be able to pull off the same trick. I would take away the bows of Eladon and Elwar here. Now I hesitate to say that because I get that you could might their shots and get a key target, but you save 10 points and distribute all of your Rivendell Knights now with shields. And now suddenly there actually is a decision to be made whether or not you want to hit the horse or rider. And when they dismount, they become still credible threats that can shield and hold off as the heroes do what they need to do. Because that is what everyone's going to be doing. They're going to see these big powerhouse heroes and they're like, all right, just murder all of the elves. Fight 6 elves, sure. A lot of times I've seen Fight 6 be most effective when you could like spam out the amount of spears you can bring to bear on these. I feel like Fight 6 is one of those point levels where like either it's effective or it's not. And either your army is like you're fighting another elven army or not. But with this, you gave them all spears and shields, so that's good for the most part. I imagine one of the Iversons might say, hey, why do all 16 need spears? But I suppose that gives some flexibility. So, I mean, I can applaud it, not applaud it, but I still would say get rid of the bows and Eladon and Elwar here first before like removing spears from the Kingsguard. That's my initial gut thought. And that is kind of my rundown of, I think, the intent of your list. But it just my gut reaction, and maybe the Iversons can disagree with me. I don't think this list hits as hard as the one I described, and is not even as defensive as the one I described, where I'm defense 7 across the board. But what do you guys think?
So
go ahead.
I see what they're trying to do here, right? And I actually see like quite a decent number of these lists. And it's basically they're trying to do like they heard about the hammer and anvil tactic and they're like, I want to do that tactic. I want to have this wall here and I want to just smack them super hard with all these cavalry models. The issue with a lot of these sort of hammer and anvil tactics is usually they'll go way too heavy on the cav and not heavy enough on the infantry, which I think is exactly what they've done here, because they don't really have much of an anvil in the first place. It's only like 16, 17 guys, and with the amount of power that people can get at 1,000 points, you can chew through those Kingsguard pretty quickly, and basically just your Rivendell Knights won't have any anvil to work with. And unfortunately, I hate to advise sweeping changes, but I just feel like the makeup of this list just won't be able to be overly successful. And if you're perfectly fine with that, then sure, go ahead. Just we'll go with the quick change of dropping the bows, taking the shields on the Rivendell Knights. Also get Gil-galad a horse.
Does he not have? I just assumed he did.
He also
oh my god, that's a crime.
He also needs a shield.
Why does he?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the shield on Gil-galad, I think, especially if he's your leader, I definitely do. But I think if I were to try and make this like as competitive as I could, I would either drop all but like 2 or 3 of the Rivendell Knights and just get as many guys in there as possible to try and shore up my numbers problem, which will give you a more defensive army that can last longer while your 4 heroes do all the hitting. Or I would just say screw it and go all Rivendell Knights and just go for that like full hit them as hard as possible, as quickly as possible style of list. I hate to say this, but I don't think this sort of mixed style of list, not like Mick the podcast host, but mixed style of list really will function at all, unfortunately.
I actually 100% agree with that. I think either all Rivendell Knights or all infantry.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say too, because this is going to run into like 60 or 70 Morannon orcs, and the 60 or 70 Morannon orcs will swallow this army whole. And unfortunately, all the 16 Kingsguard are going to do is serve as an anchor for the knights, so that the knights will get like caught trying to save the battle line. So yeah, my thought was, when I was looking at this, was get rid of all the infantry, give Gil-galad a horse and a shield, and and then buy Rivendell Knights. And it's possible. I don't know. I'd want to do the math on this and see how much he takes him down. But one thing you may want to think about here would be putting Lindir on a horse with armor and having him run around. You're going to lose some Rivendell Knights, but you're going to get that extra free point of will. I'm not sure it's worth it at the end of the day, but it might be fun to do just with Elrond, like casting Wrath of Bruin in every turn.
Only at 3 inches. Keep in mind, it's pretty restrictive.
It is pretty restrictive, but still. The other thing, and he's got a few other spells. I can't even remember what spells Elrond has here. No, it's just renew.
Wrath?
He just has
Wrath
renew.
of Bruin and renew.
And renew. Yep.
Yeah, 3 inches is always tough because it really only gets, especially like you have to cast it before you charge. So like it only really gets like 2 guys generally if you don't want to charge.
Well, it gets 2 cavalry guys. If you are charging into a shield wall, you can get a bunch more guys than that. You can knock
Sorry, not
down...
2. I meant like 2 ranks.
Oh yeah. But you can get like 6 guys in a shield wall.
Yeah.
And it might be something to think about. It would certainly give you a fun option putting Lindir in here. I'm not sure at the end of the day that is going to be worth the number of Rivendell Knights that you lose in order to get it, but it might be a fun option.
I think if you do want to mix with this hammer and anvil, I think really only like if you really want to play with the list kind of like as is, and you don't want to go as extreme as what Evan is suggesting, then you drop 5 knights, maybe sure Lindir option, but just shore up that anvil. Because honestly, your real hammer is not the knights. It's the 4 leaders that you have that are all combat monsters that can hit. And then the knights are just buffers. They're really just things that block the heroes from being totally swarmed and surrounded. So using large base sizes and their quick movement that can move with the leadership. And that's how I would use them. Maybe hero combat shenanigans, but usually the heroes are going to do that with each other possibly. So that's with dropping 5 Rivendell Knights, you're saving, what is that, 100 points? And then 100 points go back into, what is that, 8? I don't know the cost of an elf.
So dropping 5 of them is like, 105, 110 points. So that's like 10 elves.
Yeah. And by the way, if you're going to drop 5 Rivendell Knights, get rid of Elrond. You don't need him. Put in Glorfindel.
Yeah, that's also true. Elrond basically functions only because he allows you to get those Rivendell Knights. So if you're going with a less Rivendell Knight list, I think Glorfindel is just the better option.
Yep. Now on the other hand, if you want to just get rid of, if you see your anvil as an anchor, which I think probably it is, then you keep Elrond, you go all Rivendell Knights. And I would not consider adding Lindir to something where you weren't doing the all Rivendell Knight option. I think Lindir is only useful when you have the all Rivendell Knight option, because I think the other thing he gives, if I'm remembering correctly, is he gives resistance to magic to everybody within like 6 inches of him.
Lindir does, yeah,
which is going to be useful at 1,000 points because there's going to be a lot of
magic,
these guys flying around. And if you get guys on horses, then you probably want the ability to resist, sorceress blasts and stuff like that.
All right. Well, let us know, Mark, if you end up bringing this to the tournament. If you made any of these changes, or if you just went ahead and tried this out before maybe this podcast got aired and you saw our suggestions. But just for the sake of the fact that we have a lot of lists to go through today, we're going to go ahead and move on from this. For anyone else who wants to have us review the list, submit it in the YouTube channel, and we will get to it. So preferably, pull some heartstrings off Matt if you can.
That's right. I'm a sucker for tears. Okay, so let's see. So I think now we're going to talk about ETC lists. And correct me if I'm wrong, Devin, but the format of the ETC is a country will put together a team or several teams. Each team has 4 people. And when they actually play a round, the teams are matched against each other, so that, like Poland 1 will play England 2, and the 4 people on Poland 1 will get arranged and pair off against the 4 people on England
1.
2 or
yeah.
whatever. And then they will play 4 games between them, and then those 4 games you kind of total up the results, and that's how you determine which team beat the other team. Is that right?
That's for the most part it. I mean, there's been some minor adjustments over the years, but essentially the 2 team captains, so all the teams actually have a team captain who selects which player they want to match against in like a alternating order, which team they want to match with each other, and they know the lists. They also can bring they know the list in advance, and they can actually submit, I believe there's a false 5th list. So that way you can't totally list Taylor against the opposing team. Other than that, as far as the 2 teams, from my understanding, that it actually operates as a totally new independent team. So, and don't quote me on this one, this might be wrong, but I believe England 1 could fight England 2 if theoretically they were, they made their way up the thing. That's the only part I'm not so sure about.
Yeah. Okay.
So from what I remember of the of how it's structured is the first 3 games are pooled in a sense that I think it's 4 teams are placed in one pool, and those teams all play each other for those 3 games. And then I believe the top 2 of the pools move on to the second day. Basically the winning side. The losing side, I believe, also plays, but they're less relevant. And then the rest of it is Swiss ranked on a team by team basis for the last 3 games.
From my understanding, that's exactly how it works.
Yeah, obviously, if you played at the ETC or are more familiar with the ETC than we are, please tell us in the comments how ridiculously wrong we were. But that's our understanding of it.
Yeah, we fortunately have not yet got an American team to be able to fly over there. It's quite a cost for us. But then again, it is the European Tournament Championship. So,
well, technically, it's the World Team Championships.
Yeah,
now is what they're calling it. But
they are calling it World.
It's just the Europeans so far, because of how far away it is.
Yeah, I believe they have one Asian team from Russia. I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I do remember.
No, they've got a Ukrainian team.
Oh, Ukrainians. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that most Ukrainians will tell you that they're in Europe.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they'll be rather emphatic about it at this point.
So,
all right, moving on from current events.
like uncomfortable mode. All right. So let's go into it. What did you want to go this in team order or?
Yeah. Well, so what I have is I have the results at the end of the first day up here on the screen, and they have the order of the teams. And I think what we'll do is we'll go down and we'll do, I don't know, probably like 10 or 15 of these teams. We're not going to do all of them because that's, a gazillion lists. And
are you able to share it on the screen for the YouTube viewers? Or?
Well, what's going to end up getting shared on the screen are the lists themselves that Evan has that we'll talk through. But I think so. The folks who came out first after day 1 was Italy 3 with 61 tournament points. So Evan's going to find
go to them
Italy
first.
3.
All right, Italy 2, Italy 3.
And just to keep in mind, there will be 5 lists here, only 4 of which are being played, and the other is a decoy. So one of the things we can do, I guess, is play Find the Decoy.
Indeed. All right, so we're not going to go over the entirety of these lists. We'd be here for
just out of curiosity,
next,
who is
50 hours.
Who is in Italy 3?
All right, Italy 3. We've got these guys here. Actually, Alessandro and Tommaso, which is very interesting to see in Italy 3. I don't know if the way they set up their teams were actually like top 4 are Italy 1 and then next 4 are Italy 2, because Alessandro and Tommaso were both in the Articon Masters last year, and at least my impression is probably 2 of the best players in Italy. I might be wrong about that, but it seems like they
it could also be that
this
the number
crew
just meant like the order in
Yeah.
which they registered. So who knows?
Yeah,
And that
that
could be
seems
a good
more
one.
likely. Yeah,
Anyway, so let's see the list.
because I know England did it
England
the
does
other
it that way.
where
They do it where
yeah,
one is
top
the best
top
rank.
4 are one, and then
Yeah,
but
yeah, but they're
either way,
pretentious.
so we're gonna see a lot of these, by the way. The first list is Assault upon Lothlorien.
Surprise!
They've got Musger, Drew's Hag, Captain, Shaman, 2 Shamans, and the Warg Chieftain. So
These are all at 800
notable-
points, by the way, for everyone
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah, so the notable things about this list, Warg Chieftain, you'll see in the other Assault on Lothlorien list, we'll see it seems pretty split on whether or not you take the Warg Chieftain. It's also pretty split on whether or not you take Ashrak or not. Ashrak, of course, is the shaman that makes the spiders invisible. And the reason that people don't take him is because that's basically all he does. Unlike the Drew's Hag and Musger, who provide a ton to the list, Ashrak, all he does is make the spiders invisible, which is incredibly powerful, obviously, but it only affects a few certain models, and that also means you have to take the giant spiders as well. So in this case, they decided to go with another shaman to be able to get more transfixes off and shut down the heroes instead.
To
So
be
it's an
fair,
interesting choice.
the other thing that Ashrak does is function as your army leader and then paralyze anybody with the temerity to attack him.
They won't send a Felbeast to go combat
Yeah.
very much.
Or
That
Azog.
that is true. But I have a feeling we're gonna see a lot of Musgers as leaders. Because A, he's got heroic defense, and B, in the case of Contest of Champions showing up, which I'm not sure it did, because
Yep.
remember we're recording this post ETC, but in the case of it showing up, obviously Ashrak is kind of trash, and Musger, while still not being the best, is less so.
Somewhat
So
less than the best.
we're
yeah.
probably going to see a lot of Musgers as leaders.
It's still fun to have Azog charge into your army leader Ashrak, take one swing at him, and then fall over paralyzed. That's always a
I mean,
hoot.
that's absolutely true. I think Ashrak as a leader is better in a in the what's it called, the scenario elimination pool system,
Yeah, veto
right?
system. Yeah.
Veto system, yes. Where you can just say, okay, we're not doing Contest of Champions.
Yeah.
All
right, so what do we have next?
Goblin Town.
Do you even need to name off what's in this thing?
No,
They've
it's a
got-
100-figure Goblin Town list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got two mercenary warbands instead of one. Totally down to player preference. It's a good list. There's nothing really to talk about.
It does Goblin Town things.
Yeah.
So what I can say about this is it is a good decoy list because just its existence in the 4 kind of makes you have to.
I'm fairly
Think
sure
about
this
it.
was not a decoy list.
And I'm not saying it is,
don't-
but I'm
don't
just saying
quote me
even
on
if you
that.
did, Goblin Town, it's such an outlier army that you like having to plan for. It's kind of like you just almost can't. It's really hard to. So
Yeah. So it's just basic Goblin Town. Not top of the meta right now, but still a very strong list. Next is whatever this is, which is actually a Watcher in the Water plus Mordor plus Spider Queen alliance. So you've got Watcher, Spider Queen, Shadow Lord, and then Durbers and a captain and a bat in there. Obviously, the main trick that they're going off of here is the ability of the Watcher in the Water to pull a hero into base contact with it and a bat simultaneously, and then basically just murder that hero instantly. The Shadow Lord basically prevents the rest of the list from getting completely shot out while the Watcher in the Water isn't on the board. And the Spider Queen sort of provides that secondary hitter to be able to do damage even when the Watcher isn't on the board. So
Yeah.
it's an
One-
interesting list, that's for sure.
One bat, though, it strikes me as vulnerable. But anyway.
you probably
I
intend for
think
it to never be in combat outside of
Well,
the
yeah, but bats can be compelled.
The
Um,
issue is that once you start trying to fit a second bat in, you are gonna really hurt on the numbers. So I see why they only put one bat in, just to be able to get as many models as humanly possible on the board.
Yeah,
Because
and he's already got a Wraith and a Spider Queen.
Yeah, they're devoting so many points to heroes already. It's tough to fit in another bat.
Yeah, he
All
has
right.
actually over 400, more than half his list is devoted just to the core beater heroes. So,
Yeah. You're going to see a lot of this as well. For those of you at home, this is a Assault on Helm's Deep Legendary Legion. Yippee. You've got the 3 captains. They've opted for 1 demolition team, which I think is the standard at this event. And then, of course, your 3 ballistas.
3. Ow.
Yeah, that's I think what basically everybody has gone for at this event. 3 ballistas is the standard at 800. You've got 44 models, which is good enough for the sheer number of your opponent's models that you're going to be taking off the board. And this list, I think, functions very well in this format because you can purposely make it so it doesn't play against any blinding light armies because of the way the pairings work. So you can just send it in and just like absolutely crush an army.
Remember, another team can select this army to send a blinding light.
That is correct. That is correct.
So it kind of almost is whoever picks first and how they want to plan that.
Yeah. It does also force a lot of matchups though, because if your opponent has a blinding light army, then you know exactly where the blinding light army is going. So I think it's a very useful list to have in the toolbox. And a lot of people have taken it. And the final list is, it looks like, Army of Laketown and Lothlorien with 68 models, which is huge. It's got Master, Braga, Captain Alfred, and just a ton of Laketown Guard. And then Galadriel with no Sentinel in there, which is interesting. But 2 Galadrim Knights and 10 guards of the Galadrim Court. So
just
obviously,
bring in fight 5.
Yeah. The intention with this is
6?
to just spam a ton of
Guard of the
models.
Galadrim Court.
Yeah.
And then get that fight 6 in there. Now, I'm sure many people have noticed that they have absolutely no hitty hero. The hardest hitting hero in this list is Braga, who is not at all hard hitting. So obviously the intention here is just to swarm them with high fight models, and just beat the other people's troops, which is a very interesting strategy.
You know, the Galadrim Court Guard, I wonder how you plan that around the Master with the fact that he's kind of doing a redundant function there. But I guess the army's so large that they probably can easily
I think that's the plan. You keep the banner with the guards of the Galadrim Court, which by the way, they also have a Wood Elf with banner in there. You keep the banner with them, and then you move the Master to the other end of the army, where he can just boost up the basic guys that are not being spear supported. And then you get a banner in a lot of places and either fight 4 or fight 6 pretty much everywhere.
My guess on these lists, just because the other ones are so traditional, is I think that Druzhag Watcher list is the decoy. I mean, I could be totally wrong, maybe not, but like that, it just seems every other list is cookie cutter, what you expect. This is how we play the game, except for that one. Then they're like, oh, let's go nuts. So either they have some player that likes going nuts, or that's the decoy.
So actually, I was looking on the Polish page with like matchups and stuff like that. I can't read Polish, but I can use Google Translate. And I think they are actually using that list. So they have a player who just loves to go nuts, apparently. So that's definitely interesting. And they've clearly done well with it. They're
it's hard to plan
top
around a
of
list
day
like
one.
that. I mean, since the Watcher isn't fought very often, you might end up fighting opponents where they're like, wait, what does he do again? Yeah, and that is such a good feeling. Like, it's like, all right, you have no idea. So,
all right. Anything else about the lists in total that people want to say, or should we move on?
Let's move on.
All right. What's next?
Next is Italy 2.
Italy 2. Okay.
Just for time's sake, did you want to do one from each country before we just move into?
Nah, let's just do. Well, we'll do like the top 10 or so.
Okay.
I suspect once we talk through the first few, things are going to go quicker because we're going to start seeing more of the same. But
all right, so these are the top 10 lists currently in order.
The top 10 teams currently
Teams.
in order. Yeah.
So then if Italy 2 and Italy 3 are at the top, does this suggest that those teams fight each other? I'd be curious about that.
I don't know. Because, yeah, I just don't know.
In Swiss, I do believe that's what happened. So, by the way, just to get everybody on page here, currently the ETC is over. They just ended, but they haven't released the actual results, so we don't know how people did. And the last updated standings are from the end of day 1. So that is what we are going off of right now. We do know the top 3 or close to the top 3, which we can talk about maybe after we review these lists. But right now we're just going off of day 1.
All right. So we got Italy 2. Can you show me just who's in it briefly?
Yes. So Italy 2, we've got these guys.
Go ahead, give it a shot, Evan.
Oh, boy. All right.
No,
So-
this is Dad's go.
Yeah, sorry. All right. I'm sorry I talked myself into this corner. This is Filippo
Ganzurla. I don't think the S
Ganzurla.
is pronounced.
Okay. All right. Ganzurla. Manuel Durbino.
Urbino. Yeah.
Alberto Zambelli, and Christian Di Donna. All right. So let's see what we got here.
Wait until we get into the Polish lists. All right.
Yeah.
So
let's see. So the first one we have is, let's scroll up a second, is a Mordor Serpent Horde mix with 50 troops. And the leader there is the Witch King of Angmar, who's on a horse with Morgul Crown and, some stuff. And he's got a mix of Black Numenorians, Morannons, Trackers, Warg Riders, stuff, evil stuff. Then we have the Shadow Lord on a horse. He has more Black Numenorians and more orcs. Then we have Suladan on armored horse with some Serpent Riders, some Merchant Guard, Watchers of Karna, and then some Haradrim warriors. And then is there anything below these guys?
And those,
that is it.
No,
just
more-
for those
more Haradrim
listening,
warriors.
what seems to be intended is the Black Numenorians in the front, Morannon Orcs provide spear support in the back, strength 4. So it seems to be going for that kind of rank and file sort of thing. So we say stuff, but there is some organization to the.
Yeah, there's organization to it. Yeah.
Can you read this zoomed out, Dad?
Yeah, I can read this.
Okay.
And then in Suladan's warband, we've got some Watchers of Karna and Merchant Guard that are backed by Haradrim warriors with bow and spear, and then some bows. So this is kind of an evil stuff list with some magic, a hitter in the Witch King, and then it's got some shooting with it as
So
well.
just to not, seem like we're going like saying this list is kind of mediocre. This is actually a pretty solid, like 800-point list as far as double magnitude.
Yeah,
heavy hitters and.
It's got 50 troops, so it's it's not
it's solid.
there's nothing bad about this. It's not it's not something where everything is built around one theme. It's got its magic users, it's got its orc battle line, and then it's got its banner and Suladan, and then
Specialty
a bunch of shooters that
Yeah.
go with it. Okay, so the next list is Rivendell. This is a 37 model army. And this has Glorfindel, it has Arrestor, and it has Círdan, and then it has Bilbo Baggins with the ring, with an interesting twist.
Love it.
And
He
Glorfindel's-
went impossible alliances with this to get
No.
Bilbo.
Well, I think he chose. Actually, hold on. No,
Is
he
that
didn't.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
no.
It's the Shire.
That's
Bilbo's in
with,
this list.
Gilgalad. Yeah, Bilbo is in the list. Yeah.
Oh, Bilbo's in Rivendell.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bilbo.
this is old
This is
Bilbo.
old Bilbo Baggins.
I didn't think he was okay. All right.
Yeah,
I didn't
he's
realize he
he's
was in the
Rivendell.
Rivendell list.
Yep.
Learn
No,
something
he's
new
a-
every day.
He's a fun.
Yeah.
He's a fun little addition. I played him once. Got him killed by a catapult stone that fell on his head. But oh well. And then a bunch of high elf warriors, and I think a couple Rivendell knights in here. So 37 elves, and one Bilbo Baggins with a ring, with Glorfindel, Arrestor, and Círdan at 800 points that's a pretty good number. It's a pretty good number of guys, and some scary warriors in there. Okay, so let's take a
Very
look at the
very
next one.
interesting that that there's no march at all in this list. They've chosen Aristor
well,
as
he's
the
got
captain.
Círdan Kieran's mitigating the need for March. Yeah, I assume
Yeah,
against
but
anti-hero.
March is still valuable
useful.
for other reasons.
Not saying it's
Um,
not, but I think he's just relying on that. Yes, you
Yeah,
are right.
and
Though. It has
it's
a-
also interesting that because Rivendell can basically ally with anything and their army bonus isn't ridiculously good, often you see it allied a lot. So it's interesting to see a pure Rivendell list. And we'll see yeah, I wonder if this is the decoy list or not, because it
Maybe.
just seems a little generic to me, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's only, well, let's see, there's 7 bows in here, so they're not, hugely maxing out the bow limit to get the most out of that, get the most out of the army bonus. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one. Next one is a Minas Tirith, Rohan, and Misty Mountain Alliance with 28 troops. So this one's a small one. This is Aragorn, King Elisar on armored horse, and he's got 18 Gondorians with him. 17 of those are warriors of Minas Tirith, and one of those is a guard of the Fountain Court. And we've got Huron the Tall. He's got 5 Gondorians with him, also all foot figures. Then we've got Theodred, heir of Rohan, all by himself to be thrown in like a cannonball. And then Haleth, son of Hama, all
what does
by
Haleth
himself.
do again around Aragorn?
He increases Aragorn's fight by 1 when he is in combat.
Okay.
And also, I think Theodred too, I believe. I think,
If Theodred is on foot, then yes.
No, he's on a horse.
yeah, he's on a horse. He has to be on foot.
If he chooses to, if he chooses to dismount, then he would get the bonus.
All right. And then the last ad here is Gwahir. I wonder if this is the decoy then, because
It's not.
It's not.
So this
Okay.
is actually basically the list we reviewed in the beginning of the episode, just with 4 heavy hitters that are probably arguably less and more heavy hitting than the list we saw, kind of depending on how you want to look at it.
Why is Haleth there?
I don't know.
To boost Aragorn's
It's
fight value.
probably Aragorn to get him fight 7. His horse is going to
Yeah.
get killed
And
eventually.
he also gets 2 attacks within range of him and can be supported and stuff like
Okay.
that.
All right, maybe.
It's an interesting.
He's just a
choice,
30-point
sure.
upgrade to Aragorn. It's kind of
Yeah,
like the
it's-
girls
it's-
for Bard.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
Not as
definitely
effective, though.
a weird list, that's for sure.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I
it's
think
got-
it'll get
it's
chewed
got
through
Gwahir.
faster than the heroes can chew through other people.
Yeah, it's got
But-
Gwahir,
Well, I mean,
but it's
Italy
interesting.
2's doing pretty well, so
Yeah,
Well, we
what
don't
can
know
you
that
say?
they played this thing, but
I'm fairly sure they did, because
Okay.
Poland played them at one point, and I think one of the matchups was against this.
this
Obviously
requires
these-
a very good player to pilot. Like you need to work fast in this thing. Which I mean, you've got the heroes to do it. There's all +1 to wound, reroll wounds. Aragorn's, free might. Like I mean, it's in 4 wounding all the time with Andor. I mean, it hits hard. Like I mean, this actually I would argue hits harder than the elf list we talked about in the beginning of the episode, just because of all the +1s and the
Yeah.
rerolls
So maybe
and all
that's
that crap.
maybe that's the strategy is you just send all the heroes in and the warriors are there cheering them on.
And you know what?
We're here not to break.
Gwahir can go nuts too because Haleth
Sure,
is
yeah.
boosting Theodred and Aragorn if they get dismounted. So if you really put them in a compromising position, it's kind of like whatever, bowling ball, and just upgrade them a new way.
Yeah, I guess
So,
so.
but
All right, let's see the last one here.
There's 2
Or
more.
last 2. Okay, so the next one is Army of Dunland.
it's a standard build.
Yeah, this is Thrydan, Gorolf, Frida, and the Oathmaker. And I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
There's
6
Crebanes.
Crebanes in this
Oh,
list.
6.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. All
6
right.
Crebanes and 15 Huskarls, which is that's a lot of Huskarls.
I love Kerbane, but not that much.
Yeah, and I like Huskarls, but not that much.
This is a decoy. Honestly, I would rather play the last
Devin,
list we just did.
Devin,
This is
I've
not-
got some bad news for you.
I'm really bad at calling out
This
these
is
decoys.
also not the decoy.
I'm really bad at calling these ones out. I see a list I've just never seen. I gotta just be like, you know what? They're from Italy. I don't know what they're playing.
By the way,
I
the
mean,
results just
they're
came
doing
in from
something
Nick.
right.
Yeah, the results just came in from Nick. So once we go through the list, we'll tell you what they are.
6 Creebane and 15 Huskarls. You know
Six
what?
green-
This
six
one, I guess,
green.
would be solid against a Rohan list.
Oh God, yes.
What do you
Um,
do about the Crebain? Like, honestly, there are so many of them. It's very interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you can catch horses so easily with this many. Yeah, you could throw them in. Like I mean, they can. You to really recklessly throw them around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the next one is the obligatory assault on Helm's Deep.
I believe
And
this is a carbon copy from last one.
yeah, so we
Yeah.
got 3 captains, 1 demolition team, and 3 ballistas. Yep. So this
Yeah, I
is
guess all
sick.
the Italian teams
this is
just
the Italian
decided
assault on Helm's Deep list.
that. Yeah.
I think the some of the Polish ones are virtually identical. I think just the standard formula is get as many ballistas as you can, get a demo team in there, and then max out your crossbows, and then
Yeah.
fill the rest with pikes.
It's not many ways to play that list anyway. Like,
Right.
it just kind of operates.
All right. So the next one's Poland 2.
All right.
Devin, you want to take this one once Evan pulls it up?
Sure. Oh, there's a Grenada.
Searching,
already?
searching.
That's interesting.
I think it was a
a
ringer,
mixed?
in
Oh,
case
yeah.
there was an odd number of teams. Poland 2.
All right.
I'm
So
just gonna
Poland
zoom out for
2.
you 1 sec.
Make him read the names.
There we go. I'll read some Polish names.
Oh,
Go for it.
enjoy.
All right. This is no, I'm not gonna be able to pronounce it. Especially Mick laughs whenever we try to get Polish names because there's just no way English speakers like
Yeah.
we don't pronounce it
All right.
correct. Yeah, I'm gonna.
So
butcher
this
all
this is a team with 4 people from Poland.
yeah.
Moving on.
I apologize in advance.
Yeah.
So going through their list. Sorry. So we got this one is a an Army of Lake Town Rivendell hybrid, has Glorfindel, Lord of the West, leading elves and 2 throw-in knights, and then has Kieran by himself, Master of Lake Town leading his 15, and then Braga leading his full warband, and then Alfred leading his full warband. So we have 58 troops. This is a classic sort of Army of Lake Town list. Seems to be very similar strain as the one we saw before, just substitute. It seems like they didn't want Galadriel in Contest of Champions, so they threw in Glorfindel instead, which I think both options make sense to me. Galadriel has ways of being more useful in certain types of matches, so Glorfindel is a hard hitter. Not a lot to say about this. I mean, this is a list that we have seen many times. Did the Galadriel one? Oh, well, the Galadriel one wouldn't have Círdan, of course, so Círdan's being substituted in here.
I mean, this is the standard 300 or so points of Army of Lake Town, and then 500 points of something else to, give them punch.
Yep.
That's what this is.
A lot less spears than I would have thought, because normally we would have thought, oh, the high elves are given spear support. They are not. They are the front line. So just interesting note here in this list that he is totally devoted the elves to fight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a reason for that. I mean, and that's terror, right? They're the guys who can actually charge into a terror wall, whereas
That
Town's
doesn't
just gonna sit
matter.
there and cower.
Because Círdan has
Círdan has-
Aura of
yeah, that's
Command,
true.
but
Has Aura of Command.
what does matter is their defense.
Yeah, that's what
High elves
gonna
are
say.
higher defense. I am interested though why there are a couple of elves with elf bow that don't have spears. Because honestly, the difference between defense 5 and defense 4 is much less than defense 6 and defense 4. So I would have personally given the elf bows spears and then put the shields in front. But they just decided that, hey, these guys are higher defense. I'm going to put them in front. So sure.
All right.
So
Oh, this
next we
list
got
is fun.
a Minas Tirith list. We got Faramir, Captain of Gondor. Oh my God. Rob
Well, wait till you get to the end. Keep going.
Kieran, Lieutenant of Armenbrod, Madril, Captain of Minas Tirith, and then he's got 3 bolt throwers and a trebuchet. Dare I say it? This is the decoy.
I do not believe this is the decoy.
You know what? I'm just gonna say everything I wouldn't play. I'm like, yeah, this is. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would absolutely play this in a fun game, but I don't know if I go with this in the ETC. On its surface, the idea behind it makes sense. For the trebuchets and all that are bringing the enemy in. You're not weathering that firepower unless you have blinding light. So this is definitely the list that people are going to throw their blinding light players at. A other than that, I mean, the hard hitting power of this. So it's got Rangers all no. All right, counting the Rangers, they're still 1/3 Rangers. But I mean, everything else, I mean, it's
This is
pretty.
this is a World War I list.
Yeah, this is.
I mean, this is a list that wants to just defend a trench line.
This list is very weak defense all over the place. They got some Falcon guard here and there, but it seems like they're just for shielding shenanigans and shore up a flank or maybe produce some sort of front line. But other than that, it seems like Majoril is meant to keep the army around the siege weapons, and I mean it has March, you know.
So
Got a lot of heroic March here.
I believe the philosophy with this list, and I may be mistaken, is that it beats Easterlings pretty handily, because the bolt throwers just chew through guys, and the trebuchet can smack.
Why
the
Easterlings
Emperor.
specifically?
Not just Easterlings, but Easterlings are very good, and we'll see them appear a couple of times. It also theoretically can beat Assault upon Helm's Deep, theoretically.
In the dark?
No,
That's
no,
Assault
not-
on Lothlorien.
Oh, sorry,
um,
wrong one. Yeah.
The trebuchet list.
Yeah,
Or the-
so
Yeah, no,
if,
I
if
get
it
this
gets
as a
within
trebuchet
24
counter.
inches, it can just gun people down. And we'll see something similar to this in Poland 1. And the list in that I personally think is better, but that's down to debate. So
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
it's a
Yeah, the
very
trebuchet to do-
interesting list.
Oh,
Yeah,
one thing we didn't mention, actually, you almost said it there, is I don't believe they're allowed to use the same hero in more than one list. So when we're reading these lists off, I think some of the hero decisions would have been based off of that.
Yeah, that
I
makes sense.
believe
That
that
is
is
correct.
All right, what's the next one?
Next is Assault Lothlorien. It has Druzhag, Musger, and then a captain, Shaman. So I hesitate to say standard build, but as you know, Evan said, a toss up between Ward Chieftain or not. But this is a pretty standard way to play this army. Nothing
Yeah.
too.
This is heavy on the
Yeah.
troops, 73 figures.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like they abandoned the spiders almost entirely. Almost.
Yeah, this is well, they've got 2 spiders, but
Yeah.
oh, by the way, the other reason to bring Ashrak is to get the venom back spiders
Yes.
for free.
And here, to be honest, this is the way I would play an Assault Lothlorien list. This makes me comfortable. 73 goblins. The goblins are the hard hitting part of this army in a lot of ways, and this to me is a very solid Assault Lothlorien build.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
it's a way to do it.
Yep. Pointing out some other interesting parts of this list, there is an Orc captain in there. There is also a grand total of 1 Prowler. So they have gone extremely light on them. They also have chosen not to go with a Warg Marauder. In these lists, you'll either see 1 Warg Marauder or 0 Warg Marauders. There are benefits to either of those things. And yeah, other than that, they're just taking as many troops as they can and spamming bows along with it.
all right, then going to the next list here, we got a Dark Denizens with Spider Queen mixed into Mordor. So essentially, it goes Ring Wraith heavy with the Rich King Angmar, standard build, and 3/12 3 Crown Horse, Shadow Lord, and then a generic Wraith 2/7/1 for My Will Fate. And then it just does the same thing that we've seen before. Black Numenorian front line with a Orc Warrior support, but seems like they went with more front line than support. This is not a perfect 50-50 blend, except for in the Witch Kings warband. If I'm reading, no, actually, this is, never mind. I'm sorry. I was reading counting it. It's actually pretty 50-50. Almost so. So, solid list, lots of spellcasters can shut down a lot of heroes. And then you got the Spider Queen to be the big hitter along with the Witch King. So it seems like they are going to grind through with Black Numenorian's terrifying opponent front lines, and then attack whatever didn't move. Then Brandon Orcs provide the punch. So pretty typical Mordor build, but just with a Spider Queen throw in.
Yep.
Yeah. An interesting aspect of this build and something that I've been looking at is the fact that it has 3 black darts to throw around, which with a lot of very low wound, low fate heroes going around, especially in Assault on Lothlorien, Assault upon Helm's Deep, those types of lists, you can very easily just black dart somebody's leader just off the face of the board, along with other pretty weak models. So
Or
if
the
you don't
horses out from
elite-
under the strong models.
or
Yep.
yeah, you can just remove everybody's horses basically. So the ability to do this much damage that you just like basically can't or will struggle very hard to resist is a very useful tool.
One thing I'm noting also at an earlier comment I made about they can't pick the same heroes. I think we're starting to see a trend here on this third round of lists. You know, what Evan said earlier about throwing a blinding light army at these like assault and Helm's Deep, which of course we have again coming up at the fifth list. It seems like everyone's preparing that way. That's why we're seeing the Shadow Lord. I was almost wondering at first, why am I seeing the Shadow Lord? But I figured it was an Italian thing. Turns out, nope, it's just they're trying to get as much blinding light in these different types of lists. So I think Galadriel, Círdan, and the Shadow Lord are going to pop up a lot, just as those types of, or Gandalf, or as those types of options. Now, obviously, Evan, you have more foresight on this because you already read a list. But am I correct on that kind of thinking that they seem to be expanding?
You are absolutely correct. The lists seem to follow two trends as a general rule, which is either you've got some sort of way to deal with shooting, either that be assault on Lothlorien or some form of blinding light or pall of darkness in the case of the Shadow Lord, or you just take as much shooting as possible and just try and just pew people off of the board. And that's how I'd say maybe 60% or more of the lists follow that sort of trend, just being very, very shooting focused.
Then this also is why, I mean, not that they needed this reason, but Assault and Lothlorians can be so popular because it also is a blinding light list without using a caster. So yeah. So these Assault and Helm's Deep lists are almost tactical to force opponents to bring lists like these. So you're almost forcing the hand of every player who shows up, or every team that shows up to the tournament, of like, all right, well, we have to have these blinding light shenanigans. So I imagine if I was selecting my opponents, if I was selected first, I probably would take the Assault and Helm's Deep list and pair it against something that does not have any of these blinding light, and then putting them an instant advantage, and then just being
I think that's the plan. Did we mention that the fifth list was a basically identical Assault upon Helm's Deep list?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
so
identical to the last one. Yeah.
3 ballistas, 1 bomb team, max crossbows. Yippee.
Right.
All right. Next up.
So next up we have England 1.
England 1. All right, all the way up here.
So
hopefully we can actually pronounce these names. All right, so we've got team captain Jay Clare, never heard of him. The other people here, Alistair King, Jake Rawson, and David Farmer. I believe.
Pretty sure it's pronounced David Farmer.
Yeah, sorry, I messed that up. So
I believe
the way no, that's a joke.
Okay, I was like, wait a minute. He's so deadpan. I was just like, wait a minute.
If you were in DC, I'd be reaching across and dope slapping you.
Yeah, so basically these are, I guess, the top 4 in England. I think that's how they do it. Team 1 is the top 4.
Yeah.
So just going over the lists. So the first one is standard survivors. I believe this is either the only survivors list here or one of like 2. So this is not an overly popular list. But obviously,
it's a play
a person
on
who will go unnamed is most likely playing this because he is very comfortable with them.
Well, let's actually throw his name out there because I mean a lot of players may not even realize that.
Yeah,
I know it sounds crazy to us, but Jay Clare is known for playing this, and Jay Clare is. For anyone who doesn't know, just hearing this for the first time, maybe you're new, Jay Clare's easily proven to be one of, if not the best player in the world by a large margin. So he's known historically for playing our Survivors for Lake Town. And this could be a bluff list as well as his list he pilots. Because Jay's pretty much good with anything he puts his hands on. But then I imagine it might not be, but but if they wanted it to be a bluff list, if I had to look at these lists, it's not an automatic.
But it's not.
Yeah, and it is not. So
right.
But then, yeah, Jay probably is playing that.
So in Jay's list,
Yeah, it's just Bard, Sigurd Tilda, Alfred, the standard, all in his warband, and then he's got the bowman in there, choosing to put them in his warband, and not Gandalf's warband, who is next, who's on a horse, and he's just got a bunch of Lake Town militia with shields and spears. Bilbo, who is quite an investment, but obviously he can be worth it with his 3 might and his ability just to wander around with the ring on and just kill stuff. And then the last warband to increase the hitting power of his troops and also just get more bodies onto the board is Hilda, who is obviously supremely cheap. She's 30 points and she gets you 12 extra guys. So all in all, it's 56 models. He's chosen not to max his bow limit. He's sitting on 12 bows and Bard. And yeah, it's a pretty standard Lake Town list. And it's definitely interesting. I think this list probably does quite well against Assault on Lothlorien. I may be mistaken about that, but the ability to have the 12-inch banner and the blinding light seems like it would do pretty decently.
I imagine so. And you have firefight across the board.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, 2 and a
Well, you're
yeah.
equal generally, because prowlers are 3 and
Orc
orc
support.
spearmen are 3. But you do have the banner, which is nice. Moving on is Lothlorien, which I'm gonna say it right now, is also not the decoy list. They are playing this list, which is definitely interesting. It's pure Lothlorien. It's 43 models, so it's pretty decently sized. There's no Celeborn in here. It's just Galadriel, Haldir, and Rumil. They have a grand total of 4 guards of the Galadrim court. What looks like 3 Galadrim knights. 1 sentinel in there, it looks like. Yes, 1 sentinel. And just a banner in there, and then max bows.
This is just a big finger to Nick Gardner, just saying, hey, you can bring this to even the most competitive tournament in the world again. Like,
yeah,
don't need any horses. I want to show this to Nick and see what he thinks. So.
Yeah, so it doesn't have a lot of hard hitting power, which I think is what is going to hurt this list in the long run. And we'll talk about how well England one did later.
Is this the list designed to fight Assault on Helm's Deep?
It could.
It's designed for a couple of things. Theoretically, it beats a lot of lists. It can do pretty well against Easterlings, who we haven't seen shown up yet, but they do show up. Because it's got some Fight 6 guys in there with the guards of the Galadrim court. It's also pretty decent against Assault on Lothlorien too, because of the resistance to magic and the blinding light and all of that.
Yeah, I guess it's got no march, which I would want.
It can get outnumbered, and in some of the maneuverability scenarios, it can suffer.
Yeah.
And obviously, it is very, very good against Assault upon Helm's Deep, because even if you hit Galadriel with the ballista, she just fates it off and waddles behind her army, giving the 6-ups to hit.
In fact, you probably are going to direct shots into Galadriel.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have to say, hitting this with the Dragon Emperor Legion, I would gleefully rub my hands together if I hit this with Assault or with the Legion. But anyway.
Yeah, I think it's definitely seems like it's tailored towards the lists that are really good right now, except maybe the Emperor Legion. But it doesn't seem, to me at least, like it's very good against the other stuff. Like, if I just hit this with a normal list, I would be perfectly content, because it just doesn't have a lot of hitting power, and it's exploitable if you're not taking like the most meta stuff. So I'm not sure how this did.
I mean, this is, I would say it's one of the weaker lists. I mean, things for everything you just said. No hitting power, not even a high amount of troops for what it does.
Yeah.
Leader, all that. So.
All right, next list.
Next list is Bjornings. Yippee.
Yeah. So just so we all know, it's Bjorn with 10 Bjornings, 3 of whom have bows, and Grim Bjorn with 10 Bjornings, 3 of whom have bows. That's what you're gonna have.
My scroll bar just froze for some reason. Oh, that's because my page is unresponsive. 1 second. I'm gonna reload this, and we'll try this again.
So, I mean, for those who don't know, listening to this, Bearings have been proven to actually be pretty top tier at 800. So this would be a comfortable list for them to play. Though
this
as
is the decoy list.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually about to say that because Alistair is probably playing this dwarf list, and then the next list after that seems like a list of
the next
England.
list is the next list.
Yeah. So Alistair's list.
Yes. So is dwarfs. Surprisingly, he has pure Erebor Reclaimed, which is interesting. He's got a unorthodox set of picks here. He's got Dane, which obviously. He's also got
not
Gloin.
not on pig. No pig for Dane.
Oh yeah, he's got a weird thing about that. But yes,
What's his
Dane
thing
is
about
not
the
on a
pig?
pig.
I think
he
he's
doesn't
Jewish,
like horses.
and he doesn't do
that
pigs.
too. Other than that, he's got Gloin, and of course, instead of taking Dane on a pig, he instead chooses to put his Iron Hills captain on a goat, which
Hypocrite.
Sure. So a couple notable things about this list. There is no Thorin, which is usually a guy you take a lot in Erebor Reclaimed because he can get a mount. He's got the 3 attacks, 4 on the charge, fight 6, and he's got free heroic combats, which gives you a pretty great might boost in this list. Another model you see often is Biffer, who's very cheap at 65 points, and if he headbutts somebody, he can call free heroic moves. Alistair, being the person he is, has decided to take none of those options and instead take Gloin and an Iron Hills captain. In total, it's 38 models, so it's a decent sized list.
He has 5 goat riders.
He does. Yes.
That's a lot. I would
including one with a banner.
3. Like goat riders, maybe he's got more use for them, but I just find them very expensive for the work they do, which makes sense completely within the design of the list. They don't want you spamming goat riders, but despite the scene with them doing that, but that's surprising to see 5.
I think the intention with them was to try and make up a little bit for the lack of maneuverability of the dwarves and the fact that the list isn't especially big. So I think it's a reasonable choice.
Yeah, it's certainly not unreasonable. Not as unreasonable as like 6 Creban, but
hard to get more unreasonable than that. Next up is oh boy, what could this possibly be? It's Assault on Lothlorien. Everybody's got this, and for good reason. This one's actually reasonably small, and by reasonably small, I mean 54 models, which is quite large. And it's got this one has Ashrak. It's obviously got the obligatory Musgur and Druzhag, and captain on a dog, and then a shaman. And then it's got, let's see here, it's got the Warg Marauder. It has a lot more prowlers, as Dad said, 14. Yep. It has 2 Bat Swarms, some Wild Wargs, some Warg Riders.
It's got an Orc captain too, which is an interesting choice. Orc captain rather than Goblin captain.
Yeah, I think they just wanted like the extra hitting power of the mounted model, but also wanted him to be as cheap as possible.
Yep, maybe so.
Yeah, it's interesting. So overall, that looks like that's it for England 1.
Now we have Italy 1.
Yeah.
Wow, Italy is kicking butt.
Yeah, Italy's doing great. Let's see here. Greece, Italy 1.
And out of how many teams total, do we know?
Looks like
that is an excellent question.
28 teams in this list.
That's solid.
I'm
so
doing
that's
the math right.
What,
yeah,
96 players.
Yeah,
that's good.
And we're not doing 96 lists. Don't worry. All right, so this is Italy 1. Can you just show me briefly who's on this thing?
Technically, it would be more than 96 lists because it would be 5 lists per person, so it would be even worse.
Or 5 lists per team. Yeah. Can you show me who's on this?
I don't think it has him.
Oh yeah. All
Enter
right. So this
names
is
of team captain here.
so this is an unnamed. This is the unnamed Italian team, the team without a name. So first list is not surprisingly Goblin Town. And it is a Goblin Town list. This one has, obviously it's got the king, Gollum. Grinna's in there. The Goblin Scribe's in there. 2 Goblin captains, 2 mercenary captains, and it comes in at 98 troops.
It's
So
an
that's
identical list as the other one, it seems.
yeah, no, it's not identical because the other one had
More
2
mercs.
large mercenary captain warbands. This one has 2 smaller mercenary captain warbands, which I
Yeah,
think
I
is the
think
better
this
way to
one
go.
has an extra captain in
Yeah, it
there.
also has an extra
Um,
captain.
Yeah, so it's only 98 models instead of 103, so big
Yep.
difference.
And
Um,
it has half the number of mercenaries.
Yep.
It only has 15 mercenaries, although it still has the
Yeah.
2 captains. All right. So the next one is again Assault on Lothlorien. This version with Drozag, Goblin Captain, Goblin Shaman.
Say the model count so I can scroll down here.
Oh yeah.
'Cause I don't think
Sorry,
this is the whole
64
thing.
troops.
Mhm.
And we've got Drozag, Goblin Captain, 2 Goblin Shamans, a Wild Warg Chieftain, and Musger. So
It seems like the Italians don't like Ashrak.
yeah, Italians don't seem to like Ashrak. It's only got 1 spider. Let me see. I think it's only got 1. No, it's got 2 bat swarms. And it's got the Wild Warg Chieftain. This one does have prowlers. So this one does have 18 prowlers in it, which is a
Oh boy,
pretty decent number.
that is a lot of prowlers.
Yeah, it's got 18 prowlers, and I think it's got like 16 bows. And I think it's got the captain's got a bow too, oddly enough.
Yep.
So it didn't max out the bows, oddly enough.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, they've got 3 trackers in there, so maybe they did.
Oh yeah, maybe they did. Although why you would take
Um,
trackers instead
I
of
don't. That I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
really weird.
that is puzzling. They're the same points.
Well, I guess
All right, but anyway.
trackers hit easier, but they can't see in the dark, which sort of takes away
Right.
the entire. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I don't know what the
But
thought
I mean,
process was
it's
there.
I don't even
still
know why
Assault
trackers
on
were in the
Lothlorien,
list.
so it's still going to be good. There are definitely some weird choices in here, though.
The next one is so we finally have a host of the Dragon Emperor, my favorite. So this is Dragon Emperor with 17 Black Dragon pikemen and a cataphract with a war drum. Rutabi with some warriors and some cataphracts. Interesting to put the cataphracts in there. And then Borgir the Conjurer with 10 more warriors and 2 Easterling cataphracts. This is, I don't know, this is somewhat of a puzzling build. Especially with just the 3 heroes, because at 800 points you've got enough to throw a Dragon Knight in there and upgrade all your cataphracts for free, but they chose not to do that. But it does have 48 troops. I don't know. This is, I think, somewhat of a suboptimal build, but obviously still a good list.
It does strike me as odd that they have chosen to take the majority of cataphracts and not put them in the Dragon Emperor's warband. And I think
Yes,
the intention
also-
was to
also
spread the
puzzling.
fight 5 as much possible on the pikemen. But your
Yeah,
cataphracts.
You don't need
Fight-
that many
fight
Black
3 is
Dragon
awful.
pikes. Yeah. There's, like I said, a number of puzzling choices here, but who knows? Maybe it's the decoy. I don't know. And then we have Azog's Hunters, Azog's Legion, Dark Powers of Dol Guldur, and Warband 1 is the Lingering Shadow, and he's got 6 guys with him, Hunter Orcs and Gundabad Orcs. Then we've got Fimble on Warg, and he's got some Hunter Orcs with him. Narzug on Fel Warg, with some Hunter Orcs with him. Yazneg on Warg with some Hunter Orcs, and then 2 Goblin Mercenary Captain warbands to have some ambushes show up in various places, with a total of 17 mercenaries split between the 2 captains. So an interesting list there. That's one we haven't seen yet.
I think it's a good. I mean, yeah, the Dark Powers ally I've always thought about it like adding spears with the Gundabads to the Hunter Orcs, get 3 attack, +4 with the banner. He didn't really capitalize on that as much as I often think people would. He only has 3. So it seems more the intent is to get the Nazgul in there to get a general who doesn't die.
Yeah, I think that's
Let's
probably
see.
it. And it's a lingering shadow, so they can like move around easily too.
Yeah.
That's going to be a hard general to pin down and kill.
It's very interesting that they took two mercenary captain warbands. I assume the intention with that is because there's so much shooting at this event, they want to like sit back for the first turn or so, and then have the mercenaries just pop up on the bows and distract them while the rest of the army just heroic
Yeah.
marches forwards.
You'd have to
And
be very
actually,
quick
hold
doing that.
on,
You don't have any
they
march.
don't have march except on the. I don't know.
They can't risk that. The mercenaries would die by the
Yeah.
time they get there. The
Yeah,
whole
it's
army would converge
It's
on
a
them.
very,
Well-
very odd list, especially considering the meta. I don't
Yeah.
actually know what the decoy is in this particular set of lists. I would assume it's this, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. All right. So the next list, the last list, is a White Council Radagast Alliance Army of Laketown mix. So we've got Radagast on Eagle, Galadriel Lady of Light, way here, and then your usual 300 points of Master of Laketown Alfred and Braga with Laketown Guard.
Am I wrong?
One of
I thought that to bring Galadriel in, you need a hero. Oh, Valor. So Radagast counts. Okay. Never mind. I see.
Yep. So that's interesting. Couple Eagles, a Galadriel Lady of Light for your blinding light, and then then your bulk of Army of Laketown. Interesting mix. Okay, so what we've got next is France 1.
All right.
And if we're
France
providing
won.
less and less commentary only due to time here. So I think all right. So I guess we just run through the list since we've never been able to really do the names anyway.
Fair.
So here we have an Angmar Legion, which shocking that this is the first one we're running into because I would have thought this would be far more popular. But Witch King, Crown Horse, 3, 14, 3. And then he's got Orcs with a Deadmar Spectre. And then Gullivar with Orcs, a Deadmar Spectre, 2 actually. So he's got 3 total so far. Orc Captain with Orcs. He's got Wild Wargs in each one of these things for the most part. He's got 2 of them, it seems. And then he's got 2 Barrow Whites, leading 1 Orc each. And so this makes a 42 model army. This is a standard way of playing Angmar at this point. Not a lot to say here. He's got the Orc Captain for the march. He's got, a lot of spell casting capability. I mean, this is the way I pretty much, even when I played Angmar at, the event that GW hosts, I forgot the tournament. I built it pretty much exactly like this. So makes sense to me. Not a lot to comment here, but good, solid Angmar list.
Yeah, I think when I played Angmar at Nova, this is very close to what I had.
Yeah, I think you had 1 Barrow White instead of 2.
Yeah.
So the intention behind this list, as far as I can tell, is it's accepting the fact that the heavy shooting list will just completely walk over it, because there's absolutely nothing they can do against it. Luckily, they do have the shields and spears, so they're slightly better against all of the strength 2 bows going around.
Yeah, but Gullivar's still going to get
Even
pincushioned
then,
by ballistas.
it's a rough matchup. I think the intention with this list is to prey on the blinding light armies that are showing up, and to basically take them out of commission and let the heavy shooting armies do their thing.
You'd have to pick this army first. If you have this in your lineup, you got to select it first if you can and get it paired up against some non-shooting army.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So next we got Goblin Town with Dark Powers, which is something that Poland did in one of the Articon World Championships, and it's Goblin Town, Goblin King with Gollum, Grinna, 3 Goblin Captains, so and then a Mercenary Captain, and then he's got the Lingering Shadow with 4 Fell Wargs for a little mobility, and then a good to better warrior. So despite the Lingering Shadow, I'm sorry,
with banner.
With a banner, yes. Good call out. Submissions will definitely benefit from that. So it seems like the Lingering Shadow here, I'm not 100% sure if I would have sacrificed near 100 points or a little over 100 points of goblins for what they provide in the list. The list still has 85 troops, which is still healthy for a Goblin Town list at 800. But I could not tell you why the Lingering Shadow exists. It's not for the leadership thing. Goblin King's going to take over that role. So it's a harasser, I guess, just to ward off a hero while the Goblin King plus Golem deals with a different hero is my only thought process.
It is a way, if you take on another Goblin King list in Reconnoiter, it's a way to get somebody off the board.
That,
You can
true.
flit down the board.
Goblin Town is one of those armies that has the least trouble winning a recon type of
Yeah, but against another Goblin Town list, and there's been Goblin Town in almost every team we've seen.
So actually, to counter that, we have been seeing a lot of very large lists, which do have the potential of beating Goblin Town in Recon, and the ability of the Lingering Shadow and the Fell Wargs to provide that speed to the list, which it otherwise lacks, is quite good. You used to see the Spider Queen fulfilling a similar role in Goblin Town lists, just to be able to add that other dimension to the lists and be able to get that that hyper mobility almost. Also good for objective games and stuff like that.
My only thought, the only reason they didn't
get around.
I think the Spider Queen shout out that you mentioned is a better option. So I imagine we're going to see
what I think as well.
I think we're going to see a list with the Spider Queen in it, and they got whoever played this list just got beat out by the other player as far as hero selection. I think that's what we're probably going to see. Probably. I don't know. We got 3 lists to review. So let's see. Let's find out. Let's go into the next list here. We have Easterlings and Mordor mix. So we got the Dragon Emperor with the Cataphract 10 and Easterling Warriors. Seems like they are black dragons, all of them. So then we have Guritz, which is I believe the one who boosts he's the Marcher. The Marcher. So, and Heirlooms, Maelstrom Battle. Then he's got Orc Drummers, which, he's got War Drums in the Easterlings too. So the whole army is keeping pace.
Right.
Then he's got,
moves fast.
Yeah, it moves very quick. He's got Moran and Orcs, Orc Warriors, throw in Stalkers. He's got Gorbag doing the same thing. So another cheap hero, 3 might. Then he's got a Nazgul at 2, 12, 1. And then he's got Kardash. So Kardash's role is fairly obvious, leading to trackers. So this list seems to be capitalizing on, with all the shooting going on here, they're just like, all right, let's get there faster than they can gun us down. And might work, hopefully you don't hit the bolt throwers and whatever. But, other than that, it's not a bad build. I mean, you have magic users that can take down a big hero. You have, actually Guritz, I guess his role is more the Maelstrom role since he's got all these drummers anyway. So his march function is
I think you want to call his march and drum when you're trying to close on the ballistas.
Oh, they stack.
Yes. Yeah.
That's right. Yep. Great shout out there. He is trying to double time it to 12-inch speed, I think, is now what he's getting.
Well, he gets 12-inch foot.
Yeah, this is an extremely fast list. So you said it was fast. You caught on to it quicker than I did. I did not realize how super fast this list is. So yeah, this thing's moving faster than cavalry. So interesting build. I would think something this creative is definitely not the decoy. Dragon Emperor.
And it's the Dragon Emperor. So you're getting fight 5 black dragons supporting strength 4 Moranans in front. So that's
I am interested that they only went with 10 black dragon pikemen. I feel like
I think that's just price.
Wanted to just max that. Yeah, I get that they are very expensive, but even then I think the more fight 5 is better. But it is true that black dragons not in a legendary legion are quite expensive for what you get. It's definitely interesting, that's for sure. Not something
it's definitely
I would have ever thought of taking.
Yep.
All right, that is a first for me. So I'm pleased to see that kind of list. So moving on to the next one, Assault Lothlorien. This one has no Ashrak, substitute for Warg Chieftain. So pretty standard for what we've seen. So we'll move on from that one. It does have 62 models, so I think it's slightly on the lower side.
Their count seems a little on the lower side as well. They've got 7 of them. Probably seem like a personal preference thing in the list.
Yeah, you gotta make compromises if you're gonna throw the 80-point Wild Warg Chieftain in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, And then we have a standard assault on Helm's Deep list, which seems to be, of course,
Two
at
bombs.
this point, for anyone seeing this over and over again, I wouldn't say to yourself like, "Oh, this army is broken" or whatever. That's why they keep taking it. This and the assault on Lothlorien. I really think it's also the way that the ETC is formatted. You're trying to pair lists that do one thing extremely well against lists that can't counter it, and I think that's how a lot of these rosters are designed.
Yeah,
Though,
well, I would still say the list is broken because I'm betting there are a lot of really unfun games at the ETC.
Oh yeah, no. I can imagine. Yeah, you probably if this list rolls too well, which of course the reroll is allowed to do, it is so unfun to play against. So, but
just going back to my further point, just to point out there are 2 bombs in this list. So it is slightly different from the other ones.
Yep.
Oh, it is slightly different. You are right.
Yeah.
It with still 3 assault ballistas.
Yep.
Wow. Their troop count is
it's lighter on troops.
Yeah. All right. Well, then that's it for that one. How many more rosters do you guys want to go?
Let's do a couple more. Let's do Poland 3, Germany 1, and I want to make sure we get to Ukraine because that's different.
So I would also say, because of what we're going to talk about later, getting to Poland 1 is important.
Okay, so we do Poland 1. They're right after Ukraine. Okay, so we got Poland 3.
Poland 3. All right. Here they are. And I'm sure, Dad, you like the look of this first list. Maybe never mind. All right. So for Poland 3, we've got people whose names, unfortunately, we cannot pronounce. This list this is the Dragon Emperor of Ruin list. It's got 47 models. It's got Emperor, Rutabi, and Borgir, no 4th hero. You'll also, you'll see either a Dragonite or a captain sometimes in the slot, but they've decided just to go fully on troops. And a strategy they seem to be employing is they have 6 acolytes with axes. I believe the intention with this is to add extra hitting power with the list, to add extra attacks and be able to do more damage, whilst also allowing more Fight 5 to be spread around, so that you aren't completely relying on the 14 Easterling warriors with pikes and shields that are Black Dragon upgraded, because you only have 1 warband that gives you the Black Dragon upgrade with the Dragon Emperor of Ruin. Other than that, fairly standard list, 4 cataphracts, one of them has a drum. So yeah, they decided to go a bit more heavy on the model count. And I think I like this list more than the previous one. I think it makes up a little bit better for the lack of the Dragonites, by just adding more hitting power from the troops. And it has all of its cataphracts actually as Black Dragon cataphracts.
Yeah, this is I think a better build. Next list. Angmar.
Angmar. So this is actually very similar to the one we read out.
Now it's got a shade.
Yes, that's what I said. Pretty similar, except instead of the 2 Barrow Whites, it is subbed in a shade instead. It is slightly smaller. It's got 40 models instead of 42, I believe. And it actually does not have all of its spearmen with shields. It's got a lot of guys with just spears. I assume the idea of this is they've already resigned themselves to the fact that they're going to lose the shooting matchup, basically. So they're like, why not just like go all in on the other matchups to be able to do more damage to those other lists.
Yeah.
The shade definitely helps with that as well, just being able to cleave through troops and heroes alike.
And the Orc captain's on foot. Just no doubt he's just there to call 2 marches.
Yeah, that strikes me as odd, honestly, because I feel like, especially when you have a shade, the Orc captain on Warg is super powerful. You can just walk through like 2 models a turn pretty reliably. So it's an interesting choice, but I think they decided just to get as many models as possible in there.
Yeah. And next
the Witch King is on a Fell Beast.
Oh,
he does that.
interesting.
So he's
Oh,
got
that's an interesting switch.
two big monsters and a shade.
Two flying
um,
monsters. Yep.
Yes. So yeah, this is definitely a more hitting focused list compared to the other Angmar list, which was more shut down with the two Barrow Whites.
Yeah. And hoping you don't hit Assault on Helm's Deep.
Yeah, basically.
Yep.
Because owie.
Yep.
Yippee, Assault on Lothlorien, exactly the same thing, just one
Assault on
different
Helm's
team
Deep.
on this one. Oh, Assault on Helm's Deep, rather. Moving on to Assault on Lothlorien, which I'm sure everybody's shocked to see. This one has no Ashrak. It's got the Chieftain in there. And it's got a Marauder in there. Prowler count looks pretty low. There's 3 of them. There's some Warg Riders in there, just like a mix of models, just to be able to take advantage of all of the stuff that that Assault on Lothlorien does. And no Ashrak, as I think I mentioned before. 61 models in total. Moving on. This looks fun. We have, this is a smaller list. It's 40 models. It's Rivendell Army of Laketown and Radagast Alliance. And no, there is not a Radagast in here. They took Gwahir from Radagast Alliance to in turn be able to take Glorfindel as the leader, because Gwahir is a hero of legend in Misty Mountains and a hero of valor in Radagast Alliance, and Glorfindel has the Fortify Spirit. So they've got Glorfindel and Gwahir, Círdan, Bilbo. They don't have him listed as having the ring, but I can just assume that he does, because there's no reason to take him if not. And then
Did you say Gwahir is a hero of fortitude in Radagast Alliance?
hero of valor. I may have
Valor, okay.
misspoken.
Right.
And just a Rivendell Knight in there, and then Master Braga Alfred Laketown guys.
Yep.
So this one's much smaller, but it's got the added Gwahir in there for additional hitting power.
Right, it effect.
Yes.
Okay, so after that we have Germany 1.
Mm-hmm. Germany 1, I think is farther up. Let's see here.
There it is. Germany 1. First list is a 56 model Serpent Horde Corsairs alliance. So it's actually kind of small for 800 points for this alliance, but we've got Suladan and some Harad Bowmen and a few Serpent Riders and some Watchers and some African Guard. Dalamir, oh, okay, because he's got Black Numenorians, that's why. So he's got Dalamir with Black Numenorians, Corsairs, and Arbalesters, and then a captain with a crossbow, with Black Numenorians, Corsairs, and Arbalesters, and another captain with a crossbow, Black Numenorians, Corsairs, and Arbalesters. So he's got 14 Arbalesters, and then he's got 14 Black Numenorians backed up by guys with spears, who are Corsairs. So that's the theory there. Yeah, and then 8 bows on top from Suladan with some other random guys, African Guard and Watchers are kind of running around. So yeah, so that's an interesting list. That is a list that definitely works. Next we have a White Council Erebor Reclaimed Army of Laketown mix. So we've got the standard 300 point Master of Laketown Alfred Braga build, and then we've got on top of that the Saruman Galadriel Lady of Light combination, which is a fun combination to run. And then we've got Thorin King Under the Mountain on his dwarf for our hitting power. So we've got, we've got Blinding Light, great magic from Saruman, Galadriel for her Blinding Light and additional fighting power, and Thorin as your killer. And then a bunch of Laketown guards.
This list is trying to do basically what we talked about with the other Anvil plus the 3 heroes that go in and swing and kill. That's just in a very different manner in the sense that they have
there's really like 1.5 or one, I guess 1 and 2 halves. Because Galadriel's on foot, and your other guy is Braga, who's kind of half a hitter, but you do have Saruman the White on horse back in the
slow down enemy heroes.
with magic or sorceress blast people off hero horses or whatever. He has a lot of tricks to this list. It's a fun. I've done Saruman and Galadriel with these guys, and I think somebody else. I can't remember who else I took, but it's a fun combination. All right, and then we have the obligatory
assault
on Lothlorien. I'm sorry, assault on Lothlorien. So we've got this one has Drizag. This one does have Ashrak, Musgar, Shaman, Captain. This is the way I like to run it. Let's just add up his numbers here. He's got orc bows, which is I'm sorry.
He's got 7
they're goblins with orc bows. I'm sorry. So he's got 2. He's only got 3. Scroll down a second, Ev. Yeah, he's only got 3 spiders, which is light. 2 bat swarms, which is how I usually do it, and then see how many prowlers he's got. 4, 8. Only 8 prowlers, but I think he's got how many figures are in this list?
70.
70. All right, so he's going for numbers here, which is an understandable trade-off.
Yeah, he's just using the darkness to allow him to close.
Yep. Okay, and then next one we have the Host of the Dragon Emperor, and we've got this one has Dragon Emperor, Rutabi, Borgir, and Easterling Captain on foot, just to get a couple extra might in there. And for the Dragon Emperor, he's got, that's interesting. So he's got 5 guys with shield, 11 guys with shield and pike, and then 2 cataphracts, one of which has a drum, which is interesting.
So he also wants to double his speed with an Eastern Captain drum combo.
Yeah, that's the other thing he can do to close quickly, which, in this format, given the number of Assault and Helm's Deep lists that are out there, probably not a bad call. I understand why one would want to do that. Let's see, the other advantage this gives is you can, well, actually, I'm not sure if that's an advantage, but yeah, there are reasons to do that. Okay, so it's 46 models, which is a decent number. And then the next one we get to is a Mordor and Dark Denizens list. So we've got Witch King on Fell Beast, 3/14/3 with the crown, of course. Some Black Numenorians, and then we've got Shadow Lord on foot with some more spellcasting with Black Numenorians. Then we've got an Orc Captain on foot with Black Numenorians, and then a Spider Queen rounding it out with a couple of Fell Wargs accompanying her. So a lot of spell power here, and the Spider Queen to kind of run around the flanks and kill transfixed heroes. Another decent way to do it. So that's pulling 1.
He's actually way more trackers than them.
Germany one.
Oh, Germany 1. Sorry, Germany 1.
Oh, it's just 8.
Yeah, 6 trackers in total is a lot of trackers.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
I've
not too
taken
many.
a list.
No. He's got
I've
8.
taken.
He's got 8 trackers, which is also still not.
No, he's got 6.
No, he's got 6. 2 plus 2 plus 2.
Oh, sorry, I'm counting Warriors. Never mind. You're right.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken a list like this before. I've taken it to tournaments. I've done pretty well in those tournaments. It's a good list.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's go to Ukraine next.
Not to disappoint people, but I'm fairly sure after the first day, they didn't do quite as well.
All right. So I guess running through this. So first list, we have Rivendell with Gil-galad, Gildor, and Glorian, and Círdan leading them. Otherwise, mix of mostly infantry, but he did throw in about 4 knights into the entire list. He's got 12 king cards, so he's got fight 6 across the army for the most part. Probably they're all given spears, so he's spear sporting and transferring that fight bonus. So other than that, this is I don't want to call it a standard build. Círdan and Gil-galad certainly so. Gildor less so. Gildor is probably bringing in some immobilized support, and otherwise that's it because he can't move. I mean, he moves fast, I suppose, is 8 inches, but he didn't bring any L's to do that with him. So that's it. I mean, there's not a lot to comment on other than this is another blinding light list. So of course, I don't think it's a decoy because otherwise the Kingsguard are probably an unnecessary ad. But sure.
I'm willing to bet this is the only instance of Gildor and Glorian being in one of these lists.
I
Yeah.
believe there is another one in this
Oh,
tournament.
is there?
Oh my God,
Yes.
all the plots. I mean, to be fair, though, there are over 90 lists.
That's true. He's bound to show up somewhere.
Yeah.
He's always sneaking in through the back door when you least expect him.
The next one, I'm going to skip it for the most part. Salt and Helm's Deep.
It does have a shaman.
It does, which I think is a mistake.
2 ballistas, which I also think is a mistake.
I do not think this is the way you build an Assault Legion.
No bomb.
No bomb. Yeah.
No bomb as well.
No, then you basically just didn't build an Assault Legion like at this point.
Well, I mean, they've got 2 ballistas. Let's not. I mean,
all right, I won't hit it too much, but yes, at 800 points, this will not have enough firepower to scare an opponent. No, okay, they got a lot of crossbows, so it seems like
they didn't
they're
even
stacking
max
up
their
on
crossbows. They have 10 crossbows.
Oh no, they did not max. Oh, I'm reading the wrong number. You're right.
They do have 8 berserkers though.
So if I were an
crazy.
opposing team, I would take my Assault on Lothlorien list and put it against this and just watch their list crumble. Because I think this is the other Assault on Lothlorien list are just going to outshoot this and just beat the crap out of it.
I think actually the better strategy is to take whichever list you were going to take to try and deal with the other guy's 3 ballista Assault on Lothlorien, or I'm sorry, Assault on Helm's Deep, and put it against this.
Yeah.
And just win easier. That is also true.
It doesn't have enough shooting to be. I mean, it has enough shooting to be scary, but not nearly the kind of firepower you'd expect from a Legion list. Because I mean,
I will say this: you will have the game will be much more fun.
Yes, but that's not what the ETC is about.
Yeah,
it's about
no, it isn't.
So the next list we have is a Vanquishers of the Necromancer, which has definitely seen a downfall since the FAQ brought it a little bit nerfed it. So it is a full list. 800 points of Vanquishers, not a lot to say here. I think in this meta, it's possible that this could do well. I am not experienced enough with the list outside of the FAQ nerf to know really.
I am actually kind of curious to see how this list would do against an Assault on Helm's Deep.
I think they'd have to split up the heroes once you got in close, because otherwise a bomb would knock out 2 heroes.
Yeah, that would, I guess. Well, but there's so much magic though.
You have a lot of magic to get.
Yeah,
rid
to
of
stop the bomb. As long as you stop the bomb, the ballistas are going to be next to useless against these guys.
It's just every turn you're going to be calling a heroic move and going 50-50 on whether or not a bomb goes in before your magic gets to fire off, and then you just blow up.
Well, no, I think you've got 2 sorceress blasts.
You're saying just kill everyone who can blow up the bomb.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. The guys with the torches are all dead before these guys close.
Got it. Yeah, I could get with that.
Yeah.
I think blinding light only helps you against so much with shooting. I do think when you have 12,
yeah, but they've got fate. So
they do have fate. You're right, and it does restore itself with gold. No, it doesn't.
No,
I forgot. Don't they have some healing mechanic? Maybe it's just the renews.
They've got renews.
Something, yeah. I'm honestly not super up to date on their rules because
there's a lot of them. Yeah, they do re-rolls and all kinds of stuff.
But once these guys get into combat, the ballistas are going to stop having shots anymore, because there's always going to be like 2 or 3 Urukai in the way of trying to get the shot in.
So moving to the next list, we got Minas Tirith and Fiefdoms, kind of an interesting, let's see, Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, the banner of Minas Tirith on horse. So probably the most classic build. He's got 2 guard of the Fountain Court. So he actually intends to make his Warriors of Minas Tirith fight 5. Well, I know guards go to, fight 4. I'm sorry. He's making his regular guards fight 4 or Warriors.
Then he's also got 2 Rangers too. So
he does. So there is some fight 5 there as well. Here in the Tall, he's bringing in 7 Rangers. So yeah, you're right. Okay, so then I guess if you mix these 2 war bands together, you get a lot of fight 5. Yep. So he's just got to fight 6 front, barring out shield wall, and 4 along the fat. So it seems like he's bringing in 4 along the fat alliance strictly for I'm going to assume the courage boost plus the pikes. He's got man at arms, but do man at arms come default with pikes?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's bringing them in for pike support. They get bonuses from the banner, I believe. I want to say that they do. So they also are a Fight 5 edition.
Yep.
So I'm sorry?
I said, yep.
Yep. Okay. So then as far as a core little bubble army of Minas Tirith, this is, it's not bad. I don't know if it's quite to the power of some of the standard powerful lists we've seen, but it's
this
not
is
bad.
this is, I think, the list to take on the Dragon Emperor. Because it's like, I'll see your Fight 5 and I'll raise you more Fight 5.
Yeah.
But
otherwise this, it's a solid Minas Tirith list. Like if I saw this, someone added, like, okay, this, it definitely will do a thing.
It's interesting that it doesn't have Heroic March. There's no model of Heroic March in this list, which especially at this tournament is unfortunate, to be sure. So I wonder if that maybe hurt it in the long run.
And then the final list we have is this classic Mordor with Witch King at 3/17/3 with Crown and Fell Beast. It actually has Fell Beast. So then we have Carduce Firecaller, Musgur, and Goroth. So seems like Musgur is an interesting throw in. And actually, I am not mad at that. I think he's an excellent caster and pretty much can permanently take a hero out the game if he's doing his job well. And I think the addition of, the Witch King's firepower plus, Carduce, it's a lot of magic to throw around. You only have one real hard hitter. I guess Goroth could technically be considered a second in a mid-tier sense. But otherwise, Morannon works all throughout. You got Orc Warrior supports, Warg Riders, trackers, like kind of your basic mortar build.
I think the only interesting thing to point out about this set of lists as a whole, other than that I personally find them slightly underwhelming compared to the other lists we've gone over, is that they don't have an Assault upon Lothlorien list. In fact, they are the only team that we reviewed so far, as far as I can remember, that doesn't have one.
Yes, and they are therefore my favorite team.
It might be just simply not having a player who owns the army. As sad as that,
or it could be that they are superior human beings to the rest of the team. That is the alternate explanation.
Ukrainians, you are a model army, model team.
Right. Yes, if we're gonna win with style. Damn it, not with Assault on Helm's Deep
or Lothlorien.
Well, yeah, they did take Assault.
Yeah, they took the Helm's Deep, but they took a nerfed version of it.
Well, look, they're not saints.
Yeah, they're not perfect.
They didn't bring 3 ballistas.
Yeah,
and no bombs. It just felt like nope. All right, so is that all the list? Or
no, we're going to do the last one.
We're going to go over Poland 1 quickly.
The reason we're going over Poland 1 is we have received the results from Nick, and Poland 1 came in 3rd place. And just for those, we won't keep you in suspense before we talk about Poland 1, but 2nd place was Italy 3 that we've already gone over, and 1st place was Italy 2 that we have already gone over.
Wow, Italy took it.
Wow. Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So this is Poland 1, and this is Jakob who was captaining this, who we've
and he's actually an Articon winner.
With some other names, would you like to pronounce them, Dad?
Nope.
All right. So with Poland 1, seconds. Right. First we have Assault upon Helm's Deep. Surprise, surprise. This is exactly the same thing that we've been seeing every single other time. 3 ballistas, 1 bomb team, max crossbows, moving on. On to the next list, which is Minas Tirith.
Surprising additions.
Gandalf the White, Kyrian, and Madril with max bow limit in their warbands and some warriors and knights. And then Trebuchet again and 2 bolt throwers.
I would play this list. I think this looks fun.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
So
it's like amazing, but I'm like just Gandalf the White with bolt throwers. I'm like,
yeah,
I want to try that.
this was the list I was talking about earlier that I liked more than the other version of this list that either Poland 2 or Poland 3 had. Which it loses out on a bolt thrower. It loses out on some numbers, but it gets Gandalf the White, who gives you blinding light, which protects your guys from opposing shooting and gives you a bit more flexibility. I think this list quite handily chews through Assault upon Helm's Deeps. I think it could even do all right against Assault on Lothlorien, just because Gandalf can run forward with the army, get blinding light in range, and then the bolt throwers can shoot them up.
Yeah, I wonder how this plays. I wonder if you're playing against Assault on Helm's Deep, whether you're just holding your army back and Gandalf is, the trebuchet hides at the back somewhere and just lobs stones at it, basically counter battery fires the ballistas, and then the Avenger bolt throwers kind of go forward on either side of the line just to gun people down. And as long as they're within range of Gandalf the White's bubble, and they just kind of like shoot Uruks as they run up on them.
Yeah. So it's definitely an interesting list, that's for sure. And I am fairly sure that they played this list in the event. This was one of the lists they played.
So it seems like
Moving
the trend
on.
is the standard lists are the ones being dropped. All the
Yeah.
quirky, gimmicky ones are like, yeah, let's do this. So
Yeah, so next up they had Misty Mountains, Lothlorien, and Army of Laketown with 56 guys. And in that they had the classic Laketown bunch that's around 300 points. And then they had Gwahir and Galadriel as their heroes. And then Galadriel had some Galadrim court, some knights, a banner in there, and some Galadrim warriors, making that out to 56 models and a pretty solid list all around.
I think you were definitely getting a lot of cool variations of how to build an Army of Laketown hybrid sort of army.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of them are focusing now more on numbers. They'll take their blinding light model, they'll take another hero, and then they'll just take as many guys as possible just to make the army as big as possible to counterplay these other big lists.
Let's do the last list, and then we can kind of like do our wrap up thoughts on what we're taking away. Our last
two more lists. None of them are extremely shocking. Surprise, surprise, Host of the Dragon Emperor. This one has 43 models, so it's a bit smaller. It's got Emperor, Rutabi, that captain on foot again, to be able to get that additional movement in there and just to get extra guys. And then Borgir as well. And then they've got, it looks like 5 acolytes in there with axes. That seems to be a Poland staple. Putting some acolytes in there with axes to make up for the lack of Fight 5, being that they only have one warband with the Dragon Emperor to put Black Dragons in, and to do additional hitting power as well.
Yeah, they're not doing it they're just doing it to get the additional hitting power. They got plenty of Fight 5 in this list with 15 Black Dragon pikes.
And then, surprise, surprise, the last one, we end as we begin with Assault on Lothlorien. This one's 62 models. This one has Ashrak in it. It has, looks like 4, 7, 11 prowlers in total. It has the extremely standard 2 bat swarms. I think every single Assault on Lothlorien list had no more or no less than 2 bat swarms in it.
As it should.
Yeah, that's basically how many you want to take. It's got
3 spiders.
3 spiders.
And how many
riders?
How many figures total?
62.
62.
So it's not huge, but it's also not small.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's got all the models you want in there: Musgurgers, Hag, Ashrak, Captain, Shaman, and a Marauder in there as well.
Yep.
And that rounds out Poland 1.
All right.
Nice.
So the placings, as I mentioned before, were Poland 1 and 3rd, Italy 3 and 2nd, and Italy 1st. Italy 2 in 1st. And so look, it seems like the takeaways from this are that everybody's bringing Assault on Helm's Deep. Everybody's bringing Assault on Lothlorien. Everybody is bringing, or just about everybody is bringing, some variant of Lake Town, and then 500 points of juicy add-ons to it.
Keep in mind, though, I just to slightly chime into that is that this, remember, the format of the ETC allows you to target a character with almost a missile. So if you have that ability, which in like Articon or in Warhammer World or whatever GTs, you can't do any of that. So like these lists that we're naming off that seem to be everywhere are missiles. Like it seems to be almost to force the opposing hands on what they what.
I don't know.
I'm not saying they're not good lists.
I mean, I'm not sure I believe that, because what it seems to be are everybody's coming up with different ways to try and counter Assault on Helm's Deep, and then people are trying to come up with different ways to counter, well, less so, I guess, counter Assault on Lothlorien. And so I mean, it seems like teams are building themselves around the supposition that there's going to be Assault on Lothlorien in every team. There's going to be an Assault on Helm's Deep in every team, and then there's going to be the other contenders, by the way, were Angmar, Host of the Dragon Emperor, and have I forgot? And I guess the kind of the Gondor kind of artillery park
an exclusively Polish thing.
Yeah.
But they did pretty well with it. So
at Nova and Articon or any of the, I'm not thinking about these lists at such an extreme degree. In fact, the odds that you fight one, barring I know Nova had like 10 of these lists, but like, Helm's Deep, almost virtually non-existent. And same for Articon. When I go to Articon, I'm not trying to plan for these lists. ETC, I am planning for these lists. So I feel like there is definitely a difference on the mentality going in of our expectation to actually fight that army.
There's also a difference in the fact that Articon and Nova have many, many players who are not as good at the game as the people at the ETC, because you have to remember, everybody at the ETC, or most people, I can't say everybody, is a very, very good player that has proven to their country that they can represent.
What about the Articon Masters? We don't see these lists over like a 1/5 or 1/4 representation.
Well, the last Articon Masters was when Host and what's it called? The Assault on Lothlorien had just been released, so people were very tentative to take them because they hadn't yet been proven. There was also either one or two Assault on Helm's Deeps at Masters, which actually did pretty well. But they were discouraged by the fact that almost everybody at Articon Masters took some form of blinding light to be able to deal with them. So even at Masters, people were going head over heels to attempt to prepare for these threats.
So then I guess then maybe, Matt, you're correct in the fact that everyone's bringing Helm's Deep, everyone's bringing Assault on Lothlorien, but expect to face them when you're in a tournament formatted with a whole bunch of solid top tier players. But against, the masses of Articon and Nova, probably not going to see a huge representation in comparison, because we are seeing like literally 1/4 or 1/5, if you want to say the spare list or whatever, but are these lists, which is, I think that the ratio is a lot smaller in pretty much any other.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think some of it is like me. I mean, I would never take Assault on Helm's Deep to a tournament, not because I think it's a bad list, and not because I think I couldn't do well with it, because it's just a miserable list to play against. And I'm not gonna spend all that money and travel to a tournament and then have to play 5 or 6 games with that list. And I've toyed around with Assault on Lothlorien, and it's not nearly as miserable to play as Assault on Helm's Deep, or miserable to play with, but it's still not as much fun as some of the other lists that are out there. And I don't think I'd take that list to a tournament either. Again, not because I don't think it's competitive and can do really well. It clearly can. But just because it's just, I don't enjoy the game as much when I'm playing with that list.
And the sad fact is, though, if we imagine ourselves in a team plus one other player, I don't know, throw Mick in there or Rob, we probably, if we were really super prideful about winning for America, whatnot, or a team, however you want to say it, we'd probably have to have people say, on our team, be like, hey, we need to seriously consider throwing in Assault on Helm's Deep.
I think you have to. I think in this type of team format, it has to be there.
Yeah.
If you want to be competitive, I think it's got to be there.
So if anyone listening, you almost throw yourself in that same mindset of like the way now we're almost like, we got to do it. I think that's why you're seeing that. So maybe then it probably could make a strong argument that those lists are not only top tier, but probably meta defining to a level that maybe they, I don't want to say shouldn't exist, but
yeah,
I think
ahead,
the ETC is where you start, is because everybody going there is super competitive and they have to tailor stuff in a certain way. It's where you start seeing the cracks in A, the meta, and B, the game as a whole sort of appear. And you sort of see the lists that are overtuned, overpowered, and just unfun rearing their head. And I think the rules writers should take this as an example and maybe look at these lists in the future.
Now, for anyone going to a tournament as a last thought, if you're a new player and you're seeing this, remember, as I said before, most tournaments don't have these formats. And most tournaments, you are not seeing these armies in such extreme numbers. So if you want to avoid all this, just simply don't go to a tournament with all expert players.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if you're new to the game, the odds are you're not going to play more than one of these lists in a tournament once, and then you'll have the rest of the games will be fine. So, and even if you're a top tier player, the odds are you'll play one of these lists once, because outside of this format, one thing that's kind of interesting about Assault on Helm's Deep, and to a lesser extent Assault on Lothlorien, although Assault on Lothlorien has pulled off tournament wins, is you rarely see Assault on Helm's Deep winning tournaments, because it will get to a scenario where it has problems getting enough points to actually win against a competent opponent. In certain situations. So, fortunately, at least while that list at least does well, tends not to be a tournament winner, but that at least provides a check on people bringing it. That's why you don't see like 8 Assault on Helm's Deep lists when you go to competitive tournaments.
Yeah. Lothlorien, on the other hand, sorry to interrupt you, Devin, but Lothlorien, on the other hand, or Assault on it, has, well, 2 of our best players in the US have played it before, that being you and Samir, and obviously you guys do extraordinarily well with it. But also it's apparently rampant in Europe. Apparently, like, there was like this like Polish championships or whatever, and like almost all of the top 10 were Assault on Lothlorien. Italy thinks it's crazy. I'm pretty sure Germany thinks it's crazy. A lot of European countries
think it's crazy,
are sort of being overrun by it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure they're wrong about that.
I think not helping either.
I think Assault on Lothlorien and Assault on Helm's Deep somebody needs to dial them back from 11, which is kind of where they are.
It's crazy because a cursory glance at the army, and you wouldn't think it's that powerful, but yeah, once you check it out, it's good at everything.
They just get so much from their Legendary Legion bonuses. And even like the small things, for example, the assault on Lothlorien gets a banner, which normal Moria does not. And that even that is game changing.
All
Yeah.
right.
All right. Cool.
I guess that is our ETC winners and top 10 list. So let us know if you have any questions, and we will talk to you all very soon.
Bye, everybody.